Welcome to video 25 of series 3, and now I'm going to cover events, the most interesting part of chapter 1. So what will it allow me to do? I can have lots of spawner objects, I can have many things all get triggered by this one event. So rather than me going and accessing this game object and then the script on that game object and then calling some method and then doing that on many game objects, which is a bit tedious and it can break pretty easily, like if I change some code here or there, suddenly the system is broken. So it's better for me to use an event so that all the scripts are just individuals and they are simply subscribed to the event. Only if I change the event type does it break, and that's much more easy to maintain. So I'll have this new script, an event master script. I'll have an event in it. I'll have a public method that will cause that event to get actioned. And then back in the spawner script, I'll alter it a bit so that it does access this event master script and it will listen to the event. It'll just be listening. It won't do anything until that event is actually actioned. Then I'll have this trigger example script. I'll alter that so that it will now access the event master script, and when the trigger happens, then it will call the event. And because when the event is called, any spawner script will then pretty much carry out their instructions because the event has been called. So that way I can have as many spawner scripts in the scene as I like, and I don't care. I don't have to worry about trying to access each spawner script from like the trigger. Like previously I would have to go from the trigger and then access the spawner script, and I'd have to do that on each spawner to make them spawn. So now I don't have to worry about that. I just call the event and all of the spawners will do their stuff. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so I need to make a new script. I'm going to call it Game Manager Event Master. And then I'll attach it and open it up, and as usual, you know the drill, change the line endings, namespace, okay. Right, so now I need to rather odd looking sort of variables. One is called public, delegate, void, and I'll name it something. I'll call it a general events, and this is just how you type it, so just follow along. You'll just get into the practice. Exactly what this delegate does, I don't have a good knowledge of that. I can't explain to you what it does, but it just does wonderful things. Okay, so public event, and it's going to be of the type general event, and now I'll give it its name, and I'm going to call it I'll just call it, well, my general event. Okay, and that's pretty much my event there. Now what I want to do is to actually call that event. So I'm going to make a public method here. So public void call my general event. Okay, and I have to check that something is actually subscribed to this. So I have to say if my general event is not equal to null, only if it's not equal to null, so it's got something subscribed to it, then call it. So my general event, and that's how you call it. Okay, and at the moment I won't need these, so I'll comment them out. In fact, I may never need them. And that should be good enough. So the event master doesn't really do anything outwardly. All it is just this system that's in the background, the event system. All I've done is to just say I'm going to call this event when this method is called. This method is going to be called by the trigger example script when the player walks into the trigger, and I'm going to have the spawner script subscribe to this event, to this one right here, okay? So let's go and establish that. So I'll go back to my spawner script and edit it. So I will no longer have a start method doing spawn object. I don't want that to happen anymore. Instead, I will make use of the other two Unity functions on enable. And remember, I told you case is important. The capital letters matter. On disable. And I'm going to need set initial references. Void set initial references. I need a new variable that's of the type game manager event master. So private game manager event master. I'll call it event master script. So this is how I work. And since I know it's on the game manager, I know where to find it. It's easy. So what I'll say then is event master script is equal to game object dot find. It's got the name game manager. I'll just double check that is indeed the case. Yes, it is. And in fact, I always like to just copy it from Unity itself. And then dot get component event master. Okay, so that's the spot where I do have a reference to the event master script. I established that, and I'm not going to do that in the start method at all. And instead, I have to do it inside onEnable. So onEnable will get called before start, so it must be in there. Set initial references. And then, after that, what I need to do is to subscribe to the event. In order to subscribe to the event, you have to have a method available that can be subscribed to it. So I'm going to say event master script dot, and what was it called? It was called my general event, and this is how you subscribe, plus equals, and then you put in the name of the method, spawn object, and then your semicolon. And of course it always helps if you put in the correct thing, so it's spawn object, not that. There we go. And then there's here, I have to unsubscribe. So if I don't unsubscribe and the game object is gone, it's destroyed or something like that, or rather it's deactivated, I'm going to have errors because the event master will think that something is subscribed to it, and it will call that event, but actually nothing is subscribed to it, and then there'll be an error. Okay, so that's it. So I've actually set that up. It was actually really simple. Don't worry, I'll go through it again in just a bit. Now I need to go to the trigger example. I'll open this up, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say private. I'm going to establish also the same thing, game manager event master, then event master script. So in this way I know I have a consistent thing to search for. And in my set event initial references, once again, I'll just copy what I'd done on that spawner script. So I'll just go ahead and grab this line here, come back, and just paste that in. Okay, so now I've got my reference to the event master script, and now I'll call that public method on it. So if the player walks into it, then I'll call it here. I'll say event master script dot call my general event. Now the event will be called. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So say for example I start the game right now. No enemies will be spawned. Okay, so if I walk into the trigger, there you go. They all get spawned by walking into the trigger. And the way it is, because the trigger, I didn't set it to get destroyed once it's used, so every time I walk into it, more enemies will get spawned. just adding to the excitement. And look at that, they're just multiplying, it's going crazy, and I've got no choice but to destroy the lot of them. Whoops, and I'm probably just getting way carried away, but it's kind of fun at the same time. Alright, so sorry, now I need to explain to you what is happening. Right, so what have I just done? Let me go back to the little diagram. Okay, so you did this, you just wrote an event master script. There's an event in it, and a public method as well to call that event. The spawner script, well, I edited it so that it would access the event master script, and it was subscribing that spawn object method to this event. So whenever the event is called, the spawn object method will run, and any instructions in it will run. Okay, and how is the event called? It's called when the trigger example script, when there's a on trigger. So when the player walks into the trigger, I will then access, well, I've already accessed the event master script and established a reference to it. I then just call the event. So pretty simple. So going through the code, let me just put them together so it's a bit easier for me to find what I'm looking at. There it is. Okay, so going through it again, let me just delete this for clarity. There's my event. First of all, I had to write public delegate void general event. Then I make an event that's of the type general event, and I just called it my general event. Then I just made this public method that would call this event. It actions the event, and I have to check that first of all it actually has something subscribed to it. If there's nothing subscribed to the general event, do not action it, otherwise there will be an error. To action it, that's where my trigger example comes in. When the player walks into the on trigger enter, or not even just the player, you saw there as well that any object walking into it will cause this on trigger enter to happen, and then the event master script will be called, it'll be accessed, and the call my general event method will run. So then the action is called. So when the action is called, going back to the spawner script, I had changed the spawner script to have basically a reference to the event master script, a hard-coded reference, and then I had it subscribe the spawn object method to the event. So when this event is actioned, then this method is run. Okay? So the best way to learn this is to keep writing events, and eventually you just memorize it. It just becomes easy. You understand how to use it. You just have to practice. You have to have a lot of practice because it is unusual code, especially if you're new. You'll have never seen anything quite so strange, but it's actually not strange at all. It's incredibly powerful. So this is what is, well, I guess this is a major reason for why you'd want to use C#, because once you start coding like this, you just can't go back. You can't go back to using a trigger and then accessing each game object, or trying to use another method called send message, which is very slow. And this, by the way, is very efficient as well. The events are very efficient, so it is an outstanding way of really making stuff happen in your game. You can't use it for everything. I mean, there are times where you must access another script to do something, but for a lot of cases, this works perfectly, and it's fantastic. As you go through Series 3, you'll just see me using events upon events upon events, and you will learn why. You will absolutely see why that you would write your code that way, just to make your code easier to understand and maintain and write in the first place, because your scripts become very simple. You just write a script to do a specific action, and your action is then subscribed to the event, and that's it. And it gets called when the event is run. But anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. You've had a very quick introduction to events, and that's enough for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.